It's June 2021, and along with lessening COVID restrictions and the pervasive, sweltering heat slowly creeping in, the world is focused on one major event. Mario Golf Super Rush! That's right, this month Mario Golf Star Rush comes to the Nintendo Switch, and I, for one, could not be more excited. It's been almost 18 years since the last home console Mario Golf game, and as you can see, I am a golfing man. Now, I did actually play golf for 3 years in high school. I was consistently the worst player in every match that we played, but I'm also the first player on the team's history to make an eagle. Don't ask me how that makes sense. I also have a history with real golf as well. I watch actual PGA games sometimes. I'm at restaurants or sports bars, and of course I have Happy Gilmore quotes to go on for days.
You suck, you jackass!
Happy Gilmore provides endless quotes for me and my friends. Now, Mario Golf has been with me ever since my childhood. I used to go to a local grocery store that was near me that used to rent out video games and some videos and stuff. And I used to pick up this little baby every now and again for a weekend romp. And let me tell you, this is some good shit. This and the original Mario Golf on the N64 were actually some of the first Mario Golf games I ever played, some of the first Mario sports games I ever played, and I was able to experience them for, a weekend at a time and hearing them. It wasn't until I was much older that I actually started delving more deeply into the series, and well, I guess here I am. Now, I'm betting a lot of you watching this video already know about games like Toadstool Tour and the N64 one, and maybe even know about maybe NES Golf or the Game Boy Color game. However, I'm sure there's a few others in this video that you were not quite aware existed, and I'm excited to shed some light on. So sit back, get a drink, and let's talk about Mario Golf for entirely too long. So the first golf game was none other than Golf for NES. There were golf games before this one, such as Golf for the Atari 2600. Riveting. But NES Golf was the first real attempt of the standardized golf gameplay they use today. Golf was released in 1984 in Japan, and 1 year later in North America. It was also ported to the Nintendo VS system in arcades. The Nintendo VS system was Nintendo's early attempt of bringing NES games to the arcade, with the most notable game being Vs. Super Mario Bros. Thankfully, some of these games are on the Nintendo Switch eShop to try out and play. There was also a VS Ladies Golf, too. However, it was released when the VS systems were losing popularity, so not much is really known about this title. A little background on NES Golf, it was one of late Nintendo president Satoru Iwata's first commercial titles at Nintendo, as he was the sole programmer for the title. Hell, Golf was even a hidden Easter egg in the Nintendo Switch firmware as a tribute to his legacy. When the Famicom released in Japan, it launched with 3 games: Donkey Kong, Donkey Kong Jr., and Popeye. Nintendo was desperate to pump out titles to support their system, but at the time, there wasn't really a good definition on what a game really was. Many older titles, specifically on the first home console, the Magnavox Odyssey, and the first successful home console, the Atari 2600, their games were mostly arcade ports of popular titles such as Pac-Man, or they were more legacy titles. Things like Cops and Robbers, Cat and Mouse, hockey, tennis, etc. Video games didn't have mascots per se, let alone franchises, so many games took pre-existing things and just crammed them into simplistic experiences. Thus, Nintendo ushered in the Black Box series. Especially here in North America, this helped identify the NES as a toy rather than a video game console, which was needed after the video game crash of 1983. Golf was one of the most successful titles, selling 2.46 million copies in Japan alone. The game has since been ported to several other consoles, collections, or there's just been references in other popular Nintendo titles, such as Animal Crossing. It was even on the E-Reader, believe it or not. Now, with all this importance and hype, clearly the game lives up to this expectation, right? Guess not. Yep, this is Golf alright. The title screen is pretty simple, just a few options to choose from. 1 and 2 player stroke play, and 2 player match play. After choosing your game mode, you quickly realize NES Golf has no music. It's just a clear, devoid space where you contemplate your every action, your every move. Every shot counts, precision is needed to take your ball. Oh. The game is split into 2 halves of one screen. The right side displays the course, with the white dot representing your ball and an arrow indicating the general direction the player is facing. Oddly, you can only choose the 8 cardinal directions, lacking 360-degree precision. I often have a difficult time aiming my shot, as all of my options aren't optimal to reaching the end. It's very annoying to deal with while playing. The left side has a small image of the player character, represented by a very off-colored Mario, a general background of where the player is, and a few stats above. The player can also swap which club they are using, changing how far the ball will be hit. Overall, this game is not great, I'm gonna be honest. You have no idea how far the ball is gonna go when you hit it. Clubs don't tell you their distances, nor does the game automatically choose a club for you with each shot. It'll have you button with a driver if you aren't manually choosing your clubs. This was definitely made for people who already understand and play golf and just want to play the game virtually at home. And as you can see, I am a golf connoisseur. And even I don't really know what's going on here. Mario's swinging animation is pretty smooth though, and I like how the background updates to where the player is facing. It's a nice touch. But yeah, not much more to say on this one. It's golf, for better and for worse. Now, many of you might be saying, oh, Preston, talk about NES Open Course Golf next. But you're wrong! That is not the next game in the series, you silly Americans. In fact, there were 2 Japanese exclusive golf games that came before NES Golf did in the United States. I have no real clue why, but they did. Released 3 years later by HAL Labs, Family Computer Golf Japan Course released exclusively for the Famicom. The game released on a blue disc, making it compatible with the disc fax, which was a public device found commonly in Japan at the time. This allowed players to upload their scores via the internet and participate in online tournaments that netted some pretty cool prizes. Nintendo held a contest where the winners received 2 special versions of the game. The top 100 contestants received a personalized copy of the game with their name being displayed on the title screen, making them some of the rarest Nintendo games of all time. The game itself has modes similar to NES Golf, but a new mode, one-player match play, was added to allow you to play against an AI-controlled opponent player. Hang on, wait. Why do these sound effects sound so familiar? Oh, hold up. I'm just gonna really quick, just one second here. Holy shit, these are from Zelda 2. Well, the Japanese version anyway. It's just so weird. Who knew Zelda sound effects would be used for a golf game of all things? And look! The title screen is the intro from Zelda 1 in it. This is so freaking weird, man. And it was made by HAL, so it was a totally different studio. Alright, so let's go ahead and choose our game mode, and ho-ho! Oh, look! That's Mario! See? Look at his ill-fitted ass. He'd be kicked off the golf course so quick just for dressing like that. Anyway, the visuals are far superior here, with more useful information, a better looking map, and full 360 movement to aim. You can also press the B button to take a practice swing, allowing you to get used to the controls without wasting a stroke. It's not necessarily the most useful thing in the world, but it's a neat little feature nonetheless. Okay, so the game looks and sounds much better. So, let's tee up and... Yep, it still sucks. Yep, this is golf alright. The game still does not update your shot depending on how far you are from the pin, nor do the yards update to show the player how much further they have until the green, or the hole at least. Making shots is completely random unless you have vast knowledge on how far clubs are expected to go, and even then it just makes it a huge guessing game while you play. There's very little strategy involved in how you approach your shot aside from a slight shoulder shrug. Nonetheless, this is still an improvement on NES Golf, and I'm surprised this one isn't ported over more. Maybe it's due to its Japan exclusivity, but I can't imagine translating a few lines of text would be that difficult. It plays much better than the original, but it still isn't quite up to snuff to what I would consider a good golf game quite yet. So let's see if its sequel... No, not that game, no, definitely not, no, it's sequel, there you go, it's sequel. Let's see if its sequel did any better. Literally a few months later, Nintendo released Family Computer Golf US Course to Japanese customers exclusively. Again. Hell, this is even said in the intro for Japan Course. This would be coming soon. And this isn't just a simple update either. No. This is an entirely new game. Like, guys, look at this. This is so totally different. How did they do this in just 3 months? Similarly to Japan Course, this game also held an online contest. The top 100 players were gifted a gold trophy, and the other top 10,000 players were gifted a gold cartridge of Punch-Out, which is just really strange. I mean, I guess they're both sports titles. That's something to consider, but anyway, not the point. The other thing was other 1,000 players who randomly scored a hole-in-one were chosen at random and received a special version of the game which had a new course on it. This game was called Family Computer Golf Prize Card, and, you know, kind of like the Japan Course special one, it had a few extra courses, maybe little nicks and tweaks and stuff like that, but it's overall pretty similar. In the prize card version, if a player scores under 320 points in all 4 game modes, they can replace the player character, which is normally Mario, with a female golfer. Now, I don't actually have an image for this one because of the game's rarity, but it's likely to assume that the sprite changed out was actually for VS Ladies Golf, which was the VS game I mentioned earlier. The options are a bit simplified this time, just asking if you want to play either a stroke or a match game, and then how many players, and then you're off. Look at this. Haha, damn, a few months is all we needed to get some proper golfage. Instead of having a constant view of the course, the camera is now solely fixed behind Mario, sporting his now iconic America garb, which has since been reused in Smash Bros. And Super Mario Odyssey. This does make it a bit more difficult to gauge exactly where you're going, however, but you can easily navigate to a map screen to get a more traditional look at what's going on. And look at that, the game registers how much further you have until the hole. Still doesn't tell you how far each club will take you, but you know, baby steps, we're getting there. And look at this, it's a 4-player game. Now, 2 players share one controller port to allow for everyone's favorite characters to be played. We have Mario, Green Mario, the Blue Mario, and Yellow Mario. My favorite Nintendo characters. Overall though, this game is a slight improvement over Japan Course, and I can say this is easily the best so far, but it still has some things that hold it back. For starters, everything feels too segmented and sterile, with black bars separating all the useful information. It plays similarly to the last few games as well, and I've made it clear enough that these games just aren't for me. But I can appreciate their legacy and their status. That said though, I still cannot get over this title screen music, man. Like, geez, absolutely no need to pop off like that, man. Oh, this is my jam, yo. Oh, hell yeah. It's so strange to me that Mario's golf attire in this game is referenced in so many other popular Nintendo games, but this game in particular never left Japan. But maybe there's a good reason for that. Released in 1991, NES Open Tournament Golf stormed store shelves. Now, this game has gotten some love, being part of the Nintendo Switch Online, and also the Ambassador program on 3DS if you bought the console while it was still a steaming pile of dookie. Now, most people consider this game to be the first Mario Golf game, but as we just discussed, there's 3 others before it. But I can understand, especially from a Westerner's perspective, how you could not see this man as Mario. Yeah, Mario's been through some growing pains, alright. In this game, you can choose between a few different courses: US, Japan, and the UK. Sadly though, the US and Japan courses are not the same as the Japan and US course games released only in Japan. Man, this terminology just gets a little confusing sometimes, you know. NES Open Tournament was also Iwata's first Nintendo game that he developed entirely from start to finish. Now at a first glance, aside from a few new start screens, the gameplay is most similar to the Japanese US course game, but with a few updates and design improvements. For starters, it has that Nintendo flair, such as the box detailing what your ball is going to look like after it lands, a little animation of Mario picking up the ball from the hole and just kind of walking away, and some other small details as well. The game also finally automatically selects your club based on distance and condition. Yes, finally, I can stop trying. It doesn't matter all that much though, as I still suck at this one too. But just not as bad as the others. Overall, the UI has seen a much needed improvement as well. The last few titles felt very sterile, trying to capture that emulation of the real thing vibe, while this one leans more into it being a video game version of the sport, adding a few little flares that just kind of make it a bit more gamey. There's also a load more options in this game. You can choose your clubs. For all that makes a difference. I can't really see why you'd need to replace any of these clubs for a 4-wood or a 1-iron. You can turn off the soundtrack if you're a heathen, and oh my god, Donkey Kong? Oh my poor boy, what did they do to you? He looks like Robin Williams from Flubber. No, he's actually a banker in this game. See, there's a loose story for NES Open Tournament Golf where the goal is to obtain $1 million. Ain't that the dream, kid? Obtaining the $1 million just lets you see the credits and you're called the greatest golfer in the world. Happy Gilmore, eat your heart out. Honestly though, it's a neat little romp for all of about 20 minutes, and then you've just about seen it all. For the time though, especially in the States compared to NES Golf, this thing knocks it clear out of the way. However, it still succumbs to many of the shortcomings that the early NES Golf games have. It's still a little too difficult to tell how you should take your shots, many of the courses are too similar to really tell them apart, and there's very little feedback for the player to really get the feeling that they're playing golf. It just all feels sterile and cold. The heart of golf is missing from these games. When are we finally getting closer to having a realistic golf experience? Oh, thank God the Holy Christ is here. Predating the other Mario Golf game of the same name, but this time for the Game Boy Color, Mario Golf for the Nintendo 64 released June of 1999. Tee up with Mario and his friends. Boy, we sure will. This was the first Mario Sports title developed by Camelot, who ended up heading multiple Mario Sports titles past this point. They're the same company that made Golden Sun for the Game Boy Advance, for those unfamiliar with their other works. Though their first golf game was actually Everybody's Golf for the PlayStation in 1997. It's the only Everybody's Golf game they made, and in fact Mario Golf on the 64 was built off of the Everybody's Golf engine that was made for the PlayStation. You wouldn't really get that by watching the footage, though, and I sure hope Wikipedia isn't lying to me, but a lot of the core features of Everybody's Golf are included in Mario Golf. Before Golf, they were mainly focused on Shining Force for the Sega Genesis, which was their flagship RPG series. Huh. An RPG developer making golf games.
This better not awaken anything in me.
While I do own this game physically, I'm not going to be recording off its official hardware. Instead, I'm going to be doing the Wii U Virtual Console version, as it's just a little easier for me to get footage for, and it's going to look a little bit crisper for you guys. So, without further ado, let's buy it, download it, and start. The game begins with a humorous cutscene briefly showcasing Mario and friends playing what I assume to be a scramble game, and oh, Luigi channeling his inner Preston there. Magnetized to the woods, I see. And, who is this? Oh, sorry, I was just looking at my little Olimar here. He just looks so much like a real person. It scared me. Ooh. So I didn't mention it during NES Open Tournament, but there are a few human characters there as well. They sort of act as your rivals, but they're really just names given to NPCs that you can play against in single-player modes. But here, they're given a much larger focus and playable roles this time. They're supposed to coincide with the Game Boy Color game, but we'll talk about that a bit more later. Honestly, I feel like most people just went, huh, weird, and continued playing with the actual Mario characters. They also have very un-Mario-like voices.
Here I am.
Here I am. Here I am.
Here I am.
Here I am.
And people get weirded out by the humans in Mario Odyssey.
Well, clearly they ain't played Mario Golf for the Nintendo 64.
There are a few things added to this game to make it feel like more of an inclusive experience. For starters, there's a glossary that briefly describes most golf terminology. This would have been really handy to have in some of the earlier titles, but better late than never, I suppose. Alright, let's get into the main game, and, where's the Mario? Okay, but seriously, where is Mario? I mean, there's Baby Mario and Peach? Why? Thankfully, there's a code that you can input that just unlocks most everything, so let's just do that. And oh, look! Look at that, guys! I beat the game. See? See? Right there! I beat the game. There's Mario.
I did it. I beat the game.
The last 4 slots are reserved for carrying over your save data between the Game Boy Color version, which, since this is the Wii U version, I cannot showcase that. It's pretty cool as a form of crossplay. Pokemon did a very similar thing with Pokemon Stadium as well, utilizing the transfer pack to bring Pokemon from your Game Boy games onto the big screen. There is an option to unlock characters by beating them in exhibition matches, but since I have everyone, we don't really need to... Oh. Well, that's interesting. There's color variants for the player characters. I guess in case multiple people wanted to play as one character in multiplayer modes.
Finally, the return of Blue Mario. I was starting to miss that guy.
There's another thing I should mention too. The Nintendo 64 was huge into multiplayer, with titles like Mario Kart, Mario Party, GoldenEye, Smash Brothers. This thing was a monster in the multiplayer department. Hell, even some single-player games like Donkey Kong 64 and Conker's Bad Fur Day, they were no strangers to putting multiplayer modes in them.
Nowhere was safe from having a good time.
Regardless, you pick your character, and then you pick one of multiple game modes. First up, we have regular stroke play. Pretty self-explanatory by this point. There's also a speed golf mode, which, now that I think of it, that's kind of a core feature of Star Rush. But it was in this first 3D outing as well. Though this speed golf is actually much different. Where Star Rush looks to have special abilities and a greater focus on hectic mayhem, this speed golf really just keeps track of how quickly you complete each course. There's also Ring Shot, where the goal is to complete each hole under or at par, while also hitting the ball through specially placed rings. Often they're in your direct path, but sometimes you need to make special accommodations to hit them. This version is fairly standard, but later games will develop this idea further and do more unique things with it. For now, it's just a cool little extra thing to do. Think of it sort of like a mission mode. It recontextualizes the stages you already know, and you do something a little bit different in them. And some of them are actually kind of hard, too. Some characters are better than others, I'm sure, as I just could not figure out how to make this shot here work with Wario. Lastly, and this is my favorite for the concept alone, mini golf. How have we not brought this back in any other Mario Golf game? There are two courses, one where the courses are all numbers, and another where they're all letters. I also just get a kick out of watching Big Man Bowser here stressing over mini golf. It just seems so fitting and cosmically entertaining.
But that's not why everyone bought this game. They bought it for the golf!
And yep, it's golf alright. This plays much better than all of the prior games, absolutely no question about it. It's more responsive, having that third dimension really helps contextualize where your ball is going and how your shot is going to react to the environment. When you land in the bunker, you're actually hitting out of the bunker. You can see that, and it's very easy to understand why the ball is doing what it's doing and also how you should approach your shot. Plus, it's just fun seeing animations play out too. It's a nice, cozy little experience. While it's a very pick up and play type of game, Under the Hood is doing some really great stuff for making this feel like a comprehensive golf experience. Older titles had similar mechanics too, such as, ball speed, wind, and ball relief, depending on where it lands. But this game just has clear visuals on those things. It's obvious to see the wind speed. It's obvious to see the relief. It's obvious to see distance. But it's still not quite there on telling you exactly how you should shoot your shots. That still trips me up while I'm playing. And all the other visual elements are much easier to understand and read now. Some newer additions are the ability to give yourself a power shot, making your shots go much, much longer, but it will deplete by 1 if you don't shoot a perfect shot. You can also put a slight spin on the ball by pressing the L button, and it kind of creates this funky little animation that plays. Looking like you're cutting grass over there, my man. Having these options gives you more variety in how you can approach your shots, but it doesn't really change it all too much in this title. It's all slight advantages, even if you know what you're doing. A player using these techniques won't have much of an edge over a player not using said techniques, so let's be honest. Another new addition is Rain, which acts uniquely in the Mario Golf games. Basically, when it rains, it just means the ball isn't going to travel as far, as the ball gets pelted down by the rain droplets in the air as it soars. This also causes it to lose speed earlier, which is a realistic property of golfing in the rain. Also, what's realistic is that the ball halts much faster when rolling on the ground during rain, as the wet ground holds more resistance than dry land. So with all of this said and all the improvements that I just listed, it makes it a much more accessible game. Necessary if it was to compete with the other multiplayer games on the console. But
Yeah, I'm not good at this one either.
look, man, I hate to say it, but I don't really like this one either. It's fun enough, especially with friends, which is where this game flourished during its heyday. But nowadays, it's a novelty to play, and it really hasn't aged the best either. You can still have fun with it when playing with friends, but I'm not too sure how long that novelty will last. Most notably, it falls into similar pitfalls as the NES Golf games, where all the courses feel very samey. Despite using 3D graphics, most of the courses here are pretty forgettable. Nothing of note happens from start to finish on each hole, so none of the holes really stand out. The level themes are neat, as one being a desert and has more sand hazards, others having more places to fall out of bounds, but ultimately there's no unique set pieces that make them stand out aside from the different arrangements of the simple hazards. There are the Mario Star levels, which has each course shaped like an iconic Mario character, and this certainly helps to alleviate this issue, but as we go further into the later games, We'll see how this doesn't really make up for anything. Later games, most of, if not all of the holes feel unique in their own way, and this game just doesn't really hold up in that respect. It's still fun to play with friends, though admittedly not for longer than about 9 holes and maybe around a mini golf or so. I do really like the mini golf though, as frustrating as it can sometimes be. Released a few months after the big 3D game, a smaller Mario Golf, similar to the NES style golf games, came to the Game Boy Color. And oh man, people were just not ready for this one. But there was actually a portable golf game before this one, just called Golf, released in 1989, 2 years after NES Open Tournament. And this one, oh boy, it's rough. Just watch the footage on screen to see exactly what I mean. The backswing for your shots is extremely fast and requires near perfect precision or else your shot ain't going nowhere. It suffers from all the problems of the NES games, but honestly a lot worse. This one could have been so much better, especially since Open Tournament was out by this time. But it's just not fun to play, and it was in desperate need of a facelift. Therefore, enter Mario Golf. It may seem like common knowledge now, but Mario Golf on the Game Boy Color, while being a golf game, was far more than that. It was a full-fledged RPG adventure game. While Mario Golf for Game Boy Color does just have regular golf modes where you pick a character and go to town, there's a fully featured role-playing game included too. You choose a character, you level them up, explore environments, speak to NPCs to take on side quests. It's really neat, especially for the time. The main draw to this game is obviously the story mode, however you don't need to play it if you don't want to. A majority of the courses are all unlocked from the start, and you can quickly jump into a normal game if you just want to. You can choose between a hilariously off-model Mario or Luigi and play a few rounds. For being technically a mobile port of a console experience, this game does a great job of emulating its core title. As mentioned earlier, it plays more similarly to the NES-style golf games, but with the more updated features in the UI of the N64 game. And I gotta say, this plays so much better than all of the NES games too. It just feels better to play, there's that sense of feedback and all the sound effects, and the music really helps keep things fast-paced and energetic. Now, I never said that this makes me any better at the game, far from it, but I enjoyed myself here more than any of the games so far, and that includes the Nintendo 64 one. It's just so simple, it's quick fun that you can just play in short bursts, and you can still have a good time with it. The courses are pretty samey, yes, but I feel that since the game feels so good to play, and the feedback is much appreciated, I found myself putting in more time with this one than any of the other games that I listed thus far. I didn't get too far into the story, however, I just couldn't find any to pour a bunch of time into a golf RPG on the Game Boy, though this game did inspire a more recent golf story on Nintendo Switch, and that game really has my attention. I've been playing through it for a bit now, and it's super slick and polished. That might get its own video later down the line though, as it's a bit more fully featured than any of the games that it was inspired by.
Now you may think that the GameCube title is the next in the series, but you're wrong! There's actually another Japan-exclusive game released for the Game Boy Color, called Mobile Golf, and it sure has an interesting story to tell. Released only in Japan in 2001 for the Game Boy Color. Sir? Released only in Japan in May of 2001 for the Game Boy Color, Mobile Golf sure is an interesting addition to the Mario Golf series. Yeah, bet you didn't know this one existed. Makes two of us. In Japan, this was actually the last ever Game Boy Color game released, and it came bundled with an adapter for players to play online with. And this was 2001 internet we're talking about here, so I'm sure it was just great. I'm positive that it was.
I unfortunately don't have much to say on this one for the time being. I don't have a way of playing the game at the moment, and for the life of me, I could not find a working ROM online. So I'm stuck watching gameplay footage on YouTube, which I'm not totally down for stealing other people's content and putting it on my channel in such large bursts. However, just to briefly touch on it, it's a sequel to Mario Golf on Game Boy Color, basically, but with a higher emphasis on the original characters than the Mario ones. Though Mario characters are still in the game as unlockable characters via the internet service, which of course is no longer accessible. You could even unlock Foreman Spike, who was an enemy from Wrecking Crew of all places. What a weird character to include in a Mario Golf game. But yeah, it focused more on the story mode, it kind of cut out some of the fluff of the original game, and it looks to be an overall slight improvement on Mario Golf. However, interestingly enough, it was the last Game Boy Color game released in Japan, which kind of explains why it didn't come over here. At this point, everyone was gearing up for the Game Boy Advance, and we were kind of ready to drop the Game Boy line, because the Game Boy Color, while it was an improvement on the Game Boy, was ultimately just a color version of the same hardware for the most part. People were ready to go into the next generation of things, so a golf game that was a sequel to another golf game that it probably didn't do super hot at the time anyway, it didn't really make a lot of sense to port it over here, let alone, honestly, it probably didn't make a lot of sense to release in Japan, even when it did come out. Again, I don't really have much to say about this one other than the fact that it exists. It's weird, and it's definitely very, very similar to the other Mario Golf game on Game Boy Color. Maybe one day in the future, though, I'll have something more to say on it. But that's really all I have to say in today's video. In the future, I'll be talking about Mario Golf Toadstool Tour and Mario Golf Advance Tour on the Game Boy Color. Game Boy Color, what the fuck? And I have a lot to say about these ones, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the upload. I think Nintendo really started to hit their stride with these ones. Thank you all for watching. This is my first video, and I really appreciate you sticking around to the end. I had to make a first video, and I tried to pick something that I was really passionate about and knew a lot about, and that just so happens to be Mario Golf. I know a lot about the Mario Golf games, probably a lot more than I should, but nonetheless, I hope that it made an entertaining video for you to watch. I don't have much to plug just because I'm just starting this whole YouTube thing, but if you could share this video around with some people that you really like, that would really help me out. Try and get it popular, try and get it big. Just share it around. I think there's a lot of cool information here that people could know about and, just expand their gaming knowledge in general. Otherwise, you can follow my Twitter, @PrestonLingle on Twitter, just to keep up to date on what I'm doing and stuff like that. And obviously, if you could subscribe to the channel and like and whatever the hell, that would obviously really help me out. Thanks again for watching, and everyone take care.